Wait, hold up. I want to know something. Are you chilling on a park bench right now? Are you sitting in the back of the bus, vibing out, possibly hanging from the tree, enjoying the view? Well, you're probably in the right place. This is not enough questions. If you end up liking what you hear, tell a friend or leave a review. Welcome back, everyone. You know the voice. I am Julian. Today, my name is Menace to Society. The unperceived Tyler is actually back. Nice, visible today. She's joining me.
Allergies didn't take me out.
They're trying though.
They really are.
Yes. And as you hear, we are not alone today. We have, I'm going to say, the most famous person on the show today.
Probably the most famous person.
Ambitious.
We have Paul. Paul is here with us.
The famous Paul. You know him whether you realize it or not. No, you don't.
Yes,
I say that in your own right.
Yes, because I actually saw Paul do a event and he reached out to us. So I really do appreciate Paul for being here. And he reached out to us and he's like, he wants to be surprised about what the question is. So he doesn't even know what the question is we're about to give him.
And I was crazy enough to be surprised on a silly Saturday. So I don't know what I'm getting myself into.
Oh my gosh, that is right.
I might have made the biggest mistake of my life. We're going to find out. And y'all are going to be live with it.
Yes.
I just rolled out of bed 20 minutes ago. It's going to be extra silly.
It's extra silly. My Wi-Fi might be cutting in and out. I'm on an island again. You know which island it is eventually if you just, if you just listen to the behind the scenes. But of course, as always, before we get into the actual question, how was your last 7-ish days, Paul? Let's start with you.
Oh, my last 7-ish days. Man, oh man. Okay, so just to give a preface, so my life is very unconventional. So I am full-time ministry. I have not gotten a traditional paycheck in 5.5 years, and every day is different. But the last 7 or so days have been particularly different. There's a much longer story behind it, but we got blessed with some house repairs. A huge blessing. A lot of stuff is happening, but this week has been full of that work. And every day, I don't actually know what work is getting done because what I was told has changed every day for different reasons. For example, we're getting free windows. That's huge. But they were supposed to be doing the outside of it, and they use this sheet metal stuff to do the framing outside. Well, yesterday was wildly windy, and it was catching these sheets and like pulling them out of the guy's hands. The problem is thin metal can cut your hand off.
Yeah.
So they had to pivot and say, maybe we shouldn't do outside work today, which meant for me, I've had to work from home, which isn't too big of a problem, but I have to pivot if they suddenly need to do different rooms and I suddenly have to move a lot of stuff out of the way. So this whole week is a blur because not just every day, but almost like every hour has been different than what I expected it to be. It's good. In the end, a lot of blessings going to come out of it, but in the midst of it,
I understand. That has been basically my past 7 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, nothing I plan really goes accordingly. And my friend, like, I really just walk. I was like, "Oh, what do you have plans today?" I'm like, "I don't know. You're not gonna do anything. Something's gonna show up. Like, I can't tell you what, but something will show up. So I don't even like really make any plans for real. So I completely understand. Every hour is something different.
Yeah, and then when I add 3 young kids into it, that also throws changes in because 2024 has been the year of sickness. Most weeks out of this year, someone's been sick. But if the kids are sick, they're with me, which means my plans pivot. I love them. They're great. But consistency has not been a thing that has existed in my life. I don't understand people who have like traditional 9-to-5 jobs that actually are 9 to 5 and they know I'm going to drive to work at this time and be at work at this time and do these things and leave. I don't know what that life is. I don't know what consistency is.
That's funny.
I can't even imagine.
that almost throws me into my last 7 days. And I was
Nice segue there, Tyler.
yeah,
We've only been up for 25 minutes and you're segueing like that. This is going to be good.
no, because I have recently been, and I was like thinking about if I was going to talk about this on the podcast today or not, but I have been recently thinking about if a normal 9 to 5 is actually for me or not. Like really heavily, because my last job was like in the private sector and it was so busy and constant because everything was different, but you still had to go to your 9 to 5. You still had to like make those intense deadlines, like every day something was due. And I was just like, I'm exhausted. Like I was physically exhausted. By the time I had left the job, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is wearing me out. And now my new job, I get to work like fully remote and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing and everything else. But for some reason that consistency is throwing me off again. It's just, and also like I knew for a really long time exactly what I wanted to do. And I feel like I'm kind of like getting closer and I'm working in the field that I wanted to do. And now I'm like, is this exactly what I wanted to do? And is this actually fitting like what I'm good at and what comes natural to me? Like, I don't know. So I've been really grappling with that lately. So it's been very interesting. So it was kind of funny when you were saying like nothing's consistent. I'm like, things are consistent and for some reason it's bothering me.
Yeah. So this is where we announced that Tyler and I are switching places. So I'm going to go into her consistency. She's going to come into my frequent unknowns, and then we're going to report back on a future episode of how it turned out.
Exactly.
I'm here with it. I'm hearing that as a setup for Paul's going to be back. I'm taking that as that.
The famous Paul returns.
The famous Paul. And anything else, Tyler, that's going on in your week that you want to share?
I was going to say, if anything, it's just the allergies. They've gotten better. And so I think that's been pretty good. And then we've also been looking at flights and where we're going to stay at for when I go to DreamCon. So that'd be cool. But the flights I had to pivot again last night because we were looking at flights. They were so late. Oh my goodness. We were looking at flights that were going to get there at like midnight. And I was like, I don't like that. Like now, as a person who's flown a couple of times and understands like when you're in a different time zone and you're off a flight that had a layover of any sort of kind, and then you're trying to get ready to go to an event technically that same day, like you're going to be exhausted. So I'm like, I'm not even going to enjoy the first day.
You need that buffer.
Yeah. And so I was just like, okay, so now we're waiting to get the flights again. But at least I know like I have the money saved up. So if the flights are more expensive, then I could just save on top of that and actually have the money when I want to see, like when I actually see the flight that I want. So
you just reminded me, right? I still have to buy my DreamCon plane ticket. I have been, for the past like couple months actually, I've been doling out money for different things. Oh, this will circle back into my week as is, but I lost the train of thought. But I've been doling out money left and right with like every paycheck. So, and the crazy thing is, right, my weekend started off so terrible. I mean,
no, because I know what he's about to say.
Because I'm back on the island and for work and everything. And what ends up happening is I get to the airport. Actually, I have to leave Sunday. The Saturday beforehand, I'm with my sister and everything. We're doing errand shopping, just hanging out and everything. But I have poor time management for whatever reason. And so I still have to pack. I end up staying up the whole night to pack for this trip. I already had most of my stuff and everything, but I like to keep my room clean when I come back because I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. I do that. I'm like, all right, cool. I stay up all night, but my plan was I'm going to have breakfast, go off,
I didn't have breakfast either. I'm like, okay. I stayed up all night. I didn't have breakfast, but it's really early in the morning. I can get there, get everything. I get to the airport, and my plane ticket has been canceled.
Oh.
And I'm like, how, what, when?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Just all the questions.
Mhm.
And I'm like, since I work for the government and the travel has to go through them, I'm like, I can't buy the ticket myself because that's a whole mess by itself. Call my supervisor. It takes about 4 hours to figure out mind you, I'm still at the airport. The hotel is already paid for and everything. And since it's the day of, even if I don't go, they were still charging me the 100%. So my supervisor was like, you have to make it here. So what ends up happening is I have to buy the plane ticket myself, and hopefully, and they said they're going to reimburse me at the end of it. But again, that's about $400 I was not expecting to spend.
Yeah.
On the spot. Luckily, I had it, but I'm like, that's $400 that I don't have. And what else happened? That was Sunday, Saturday, and then work-wise, I just cannot get anything right somehow. This is the train of events, because my supervisor gave me an assignment a while back ago, and I'm working with someone, and he tells me, he's like, where's this assignment at? And I'm like, it's like, I need this done yesterday. I'm like, oh, because it made me panic just a little bit, because like, without this, I'm like, I might as well just have you go back home and not come back. I'm like, that's unfortunate, because I had the assignment done, but trying to work with another person, there wasn't a lot of communication there. So sent it to him, got that out underway, but just that's just been my week so far.
Wow.
Silver lining is, it's been a week. The silver lining of this, kind of, I guess, for me, is yesterday, since Saturday, Friday, I got to explore the island just a little bit. But with me, it's not your typical exploration. It's 7:00. It's already dark. It's raining. I can't really see anything. I just start going. I just drive in a direction. I don't even know where I'm going.
That's such a Julian thing to do.
Yeah. So I'm like, all right, cool. I got to explore the island a little bit without really seeing anything. I'm like, all right, I've traveled at least 30 minutes in a direction. Let me get back.
You felt the essence of the geography. You don't need to see it. You can just feel it.
No, it's just sometime later today, or maybe while I'm still here, I'm like, all right, now that I've seen it in the dark, I kind of know where I'm at. I know how to get back at least.
Oh my gosh. Well, at least you packed underwear. That's all I had to say about that story. Because I was just like, and he's going to be like, and then I came and I realized I packed no underwear, so I had to go to Walmart. Like, that's...
No.
Like, because that's what I always do if I'm like packing stuff really and everything's going on at the same time. It's just like, I forgot something. I don't know what it is, but I've forgotten it.
Yeah.
The worst ever I ever did was my wife and I, for our 5th anniversary, went to South Africa. We had a friend who is a missionary there and had posted, these are the lowest the flights had ever been. And we had a very small budget. We're like, oh, we could actually do that. That's less expensive than going to California. All right.
Oh, wow.
And so this was November, and we're packing, and I'm a last minute packer just by nature. So,
yeah, me too.
I'm getting it all together. I was like, I know what I need. Throw it all in. We're on the flight. And that's when it hits me. Oh, just because it's winter in the United States does not mean it's winter everywhere. It's summer in South Africa. And I packed winter clothes. Now, fortunately, for the top, like I still had like t-shirts, so I was good there, but not a single short to be found. And so that was one of my stops. I bought the cheapest shorts I could find. I was like, I have at least one pair of shorts.
Right.
But yeah, I was on the plane. I was like, what have I done? Because it was like a week and a half trip. I'm like, I'm going to be miserable. It wasn't bad, but when it hit me, I felt a certain way. But I did have underwear. I did have
The-
underwear.
That's the
You
goal.
gotta have the
as long as you have that,
As long as
everything
you got
else.
underwear, life is good. Put that on a shirt. As long as you got underwear, life is good. It's the words I live by. It's gonna be my last words when I'm on my deathbed. I'm gonna call everybody close. Hey, come here. As long as you've got underwear, life is good.
Oh my
And then I die. I leave them with that. They're trying to figure out if they're supposed to laugh or cry. Was he serious or was he joking? It's a good way to go.
Oh,
Oh
jeez.
gosh.
Yes. And for the listening audience, I'm letting you know Paul has now officially changed his name to the famous Paul. So it's now official.
It's official.
And
We're calling it.
it's-
Watch out, Paul
it's-
Giamatti. I'm coming for you.
It's official. And as you know, Tyler has too much power. She already created another banner just for this.
Just special because I do think this is a good motto. It's going on a T-shirt at some point for our show. I really believe that.
I love it. More underwear, less problems.
That's a really good T-shirt thing right there.
Yep. And a solid philosophy. So
It
You know.
is. I guess we should at least get to the question at least a little bit. So
That's
we're
true.
already talking about underwear. I don't even know where this question's gonna go. Was not planning on talking about underwear on a weekend, but here we are. Bring it. Let's hear it. This
Oh
is
my gosh.
get ready, folks. Silly Saturday.
So
We're warmed up.
Silly Saturday. So the question that we decided for you, Paul,
Yeah.
is what crime are you willing to commit knowing you're going to get caught?
Oh my goodness. That's wild. I feel like it's so I just don't have it in me to do any kind of nefarious crime, right? Like that's
Right.
so we're crossing all those out. So here's what I think it's got to be. And actually I'm going to pull my phone out to supplement this. But
Okay.
you know how sometimes there are you see an article that's like, here are the strangest laws still on the books.
Mhm.
That's a good one.
And I feel like that's the crime I want to do, so that when I get caught, everyone's like, that's against the law, and
Yeah.
he has to get prosecuted for it. Okay.
Everybody's confused.
So right now I've got an article, www.hurtinva.com. So I guess this is a Virginia law office that deals with if you get hurt in Virginia. I don't know.
Mhm.
5 laws you didn't know existed in Virginia. Okay, so I'm in Virginia. So I guess that's,
Okay.
Google knows everything about you. So it all automatically assumed I just wanted Virginia strange laws. So I'll take it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read you the 5 strange Virginia laws most people don't know exist. And then I'm going to pick one of them. Now, I've never seen this
works.
before, folks. So this is, you're hearing it here first.
Good.
So
Okay.
number 1, Virginia residents. Oh, Virginia residents can't use foul language against each other.
Oh.
That it is against the law
Oh wow.
to use foul
Why is that
language
in there?
against each other. Now, all right,
Learned
I'm
about that.
gonna give y'all an interesting tidbit about me that nobody ever believes.
Okay.
I have never cursed in my life.
Oh wow.
Now,
Really?
people hear
don't
that.
believe
People are
I
like,
would-
there's no way that's possible. Everybody curses. And
I
then
would-
their second thought is, well, is he like super religious, or like, does he say, gee, golly willikers when he says
Yeah.
his toe? Like,
Thought that
what's
too.
happening? So here's what it is. This is how I can remember it to the best of my ability. One, there wasn't a whole lot of cursing in my household. And I feel
Mhm.
like part of, if you make that a part of your vocabulary, part of that comes from, do you have it around you? If
Yeah.
you don't have words
Mm.
around you, then you don't incorporate them. So
Right.
that's the first piece. But then the second, I remember a specific memory, and I have a horrible memory. So most of my childhood gone. I don't remember it. I'm sure I was a child at
The
some
same
point.
way?
Don't recall it. But I recall being in the middle school locker room, right? And that's already that's a rough place to be.
It's there.
Yeah.
And I had this memory, maybe it's not even real, but I had this memory of some of my peers kind of surrounding me and trying to coerce me into cursing, right? Because that's what middle
Sounds about
schoolers
right.
do. They want
Yeah.
to make other people do other things, and they laugh
Yeah.
about it. Then they don't even
That was
think
my
about the
middle school, too.
ramifications and the trauma.
Right.
But I, as this young middle schooler, still hadn't gotten a growth spurt. I remember having this thought process of saying, I understand what they're trying to do. I understand if I curse, it'll make things easier for the moment, but maybe not necessarily long term. And I understand that if I choose not to, it could make things really hard in the moment, but long term might be beneficial. And somehow I had the resolve to say, you know what? I am not going to curse just because somebody's going to make me do it. I don't want that to be the reason. Right. And I remember I came up with some kind of a term for this. I made up this term that I was like, I feel like I've stumbled on something. This concept of this period of life where if you can choose not to be swayed, you actually step over this massive hurdle that equips you further down the road, right? And so once I passed that point, there was never any reason to curse, so I just didn't. And then I got older, and then I was like, I could choose different words. Like, I don't actually need this. And so, you know, you get long enough in your life having not done something, and you're just like, I just don't need to. But now, you know, I'm for the listeners, I'm a young 40. So 4 decades on this earth, and people my age are like, I don't understand how. So anyways, that's a bonus little story for your listeners. So I don't think I would do number 1. Let's just go ahead and call it, because why would I go ahead and break my 40-year streak just for breaking a silly law? That's just not.
That's a great
feeling
streak.
it.
That's a great streak.
I'm going for 80, maybe 100, maybe 120. I mean, we're in the future now. So
that's
all right.
true.
Number 2. All right. Animals. Whoa. Animals can't
this is
be
never
hunted.
Good.
But it's the start is fine. It's the exception. Animals can't be hunted on Sundays except for raccoons.
What?
Why raccoons? Like all the animals in Virginia are protected, but raccoons, forget you. Like,
but
we're taking
it's also
you out.
You can't do it on Sunday,
right?
That's very interesting.
So you can do what you could kill a raccoon if you want on Sunday. So another fun story. I grew up in the country. I don't think I'll slip into the accent except for fun. But I'm one of the few in my family that has not hunted. And one time. So when I was young, I wanted to be a vet because I love animals. And so there's one time with it had to be like a BB gun or a pellet gun. I went out with some neighbors and I shot a bird, and I immediately regretted it. I was like, what have I done? I killed a bird. He didn't do anything to me. So I have never had any interest. So I'm going to go ahead and rule out number 2 as well. I just don't have any desire to hunt. And I have no animosity to raccoons. In fact, this makes me want to be an advocate for raccoons, because this does not seem fair to raccoons. I want to research this and find out what is it that Virginia has against raccoons.
I don't know.
Number 3. We're getting weird now, y'all.
Oh, no.
Number 3. Women cannot be tickled, but men can.
What?
So
okay.
All right.
Who
so
put this in the books?
I have no idea. So my wife hates being tickled. And she gets vicious. Like if you're like, when I say vicious, she's swinging fists. She doesn't care who gets hurt. She passed this trait on down to my daughter. My daughter just starts kicking. Like my daughter wants to be tickled, but she will like kick water glasses off. She doesn't even care.
No.
So
no.
This is a maybe. This is a maybe, because if I tickle my wife and she doesn't like it, and then the police show up, I think that'd be a good story.
That would be really funny. You need to after this, you have to tell your wife about this. I
do.
Yeah.
Listen. You're protected by law. I'm sorry for all the times I tickled you. I broke the law and I repent.
Oh, no.
So 3 is a contender, and the first 2 are out. 3 is a contender.
All
right. 4 is interesting. Drivers must honk when passing another vehicle. I grew up in the country. I get it. For olden days where you're not passing a whole lot of people. Now, but when I was growing up, you didn't honk. You did the 1 finger wave. Y'all know about the 1 finger wave? You got your hands on the steering wheel and you're just casual and you just put 1 finger up and nod.
Oh, okay.
I nobody ever taught me this. And one day when I started driving, I found myself just doing it. And I think it's just this natural thing that's in the air. It's kind of like when you were getting the geography of the island at night. When you're in the country, the one finger wave is just there. So, I mean, I feel like number 4 won't really work for me breaking the law because there's so many cars on the road that it would just be an annoyance. I'm just like, honk, 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 honk.
I'm like, that would be the nosiest state ever.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So 3 is going to be the winner because I'm reading 5 and it's just interesting. Children cannot trick or treat on Halloween.
Whoa, that's interesting.
That's a crime in itself. That's
right.
a crime in itself.
But here's the question I have. So does that the writing of this seems to imply that, but they can trick or treat on other days.
So every day is technically Halloween.
Every day is Halloween.
Halloween. Yeah.
So apparently it's still on the books in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cities in Virginia.
Wow.
Some of them have made adjustments to it, like ours, but they've kept it. Newport News, Virginia allows trick-or-treating only for children 12 years old and under. Children caught trick-or-treating after this age can be charged with a Class 4 misdemeanor.
Class 4?
I don't know if Class 4 is misdemeanor as much, but still. That's like Chesapeake, Virginia also forbids trick-or-treaters age 12 and older. Older children caught partaking in this holiday can be charged with a misdemeanor and sentenced to up to 6 months in jail, $100 fine, or both. That better be some good candy.
Yeah. What?
Wow.
6 months 12 or older? I feel like some people still like trick or treating in high school or like as an adult with kids. So that's so odd to me.
I actually feel like I've heard this rule recently, within the past couple months.
Mm-hmm.
the wealth and the knowledge in here is insane.
Yeah.
What I've actually heard.
I was like, I don't have any of that.
And I can kind of get it. There's, I have a lot of neighbors who get frustrated when they see older teens trick-or-treating because they feel like they're too old for it. I don't care. What gets me is if you're an older teen and you're not in costume. Like if you're just walking around in your normal clothes and telling me to give you candy.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? Like make a little bit of effort. Look, put a mask on.
Try.
Like,
try.
Just one
just put a sheet over your head.
Put a sheet over your head. Just do something. You got to earn the candy.
I was just saying, I think that's also part of the reason why they made that. If it's not a new rule, why they're enforcing it more is to prevent older people of committing crime or doing something that they're not supposed to be doing late at night. Yeah. But again, small children, I don't see them doing anything like heinous.
Where I live, if there's typically like at least one large group of teens, and if you leave your candy out, then your candy's gone. So, but anyways, the law that I'm going to break is I'm going to tickle my wife, and the police are going to show up and take me away. That's the law. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get caught, and I'm going to have a story. I'm trying to see if searching the Code of Virginia for the word tickle does not bring up any results suggesting this law exists. Similar, a search of Virginia case laws reveals no hints as to the existence of a ban on tickling women, nor does a general search bring up reputable information on this supposed law. Okay, so maybe it's not. We're going to pretend like I didn't read that. It is a law.
It's a law that's never been enforced. Never been enforced
until Famous Paul came along, and that's where it's why. Because like if I was just a normal person, like people wouldn't care. But like now, it's controversial, right? Like it's a scandal. The famous Paul tickled his wife, and he knew it was against the law.
He knew the risk,
and he didn't anyways. And man, the trial, and then they're gonna like do jury selection, and then like Menace to Society is gonna get called up, and they're gonna like, hey, will you be able to be unbiased? You're like, I saw him on Pod Talks, and so I feel like I can't be unbiased.
I can't.
And Tyler be up there, and she's like, I just woke up 20 minutes ago. I don't know
pretty
if
much.
I can even do this. And trial of the century.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. But Tyler, what about you? What is the crime?
So
knowing you're getting caught.
me and Julian had talked about this, and I am of the opposite mind of like, if I'm going to get caught for a crime, it has to be something like absolutely ridiculous because I'm not normally doing crime in my day to day. So I feel
Not
like
normally, sometimes.
it's gotta be
Not normally.
I have jaywalked.
Oh, I gotta go. I cannot be on a call with a jaywalker.
I'm just saying, it's rough times. Sometimes you see the crosswalk and you're like, I don't need that.
It's just too far.
Oh my gosh! But yeah, I know,
solar
like
eclipse, you commit a crime.
something. I feel like I gotta go big or go home. And it's gotta be something like absolutely ridiculous. So I was actually talking to Julian about this when he brought it up. And it's nuts. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just gonna warn y'all. It's ridiculous. So
everyone.
So okay, I said, now stay with me here. I would be a stricker on the White House lawn, but there would be stipulations because I can't. There's not gonna be kids around. I'm not doing that to children. I'm not scarring anybody's child. That's not gonna happen.
That's good.
But I just find that I think the news story would be really funny that someone was in a trench coat and ran across the White House lawn and then they got arrested for it. And I just feel like, at that point, I deserved it. It was fun. I probably wouldn't do it again, but I would at least have a story to tell.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I knew I was going to get caught. I did it. Anything you do at the White House, you're going to get caught for. So it's like, if it's going to be that, you got to kind of go wild, I feel like. Or it just doesn't make any sense.
I hear you.
I don't know. Like if I go to jail for like jaywalking, I'm like, there's so many other great things I could have done.
so many great crimes I could have committed.
So many great ones I could have committed to be here, and I got caught for my jaywalking, and it'd just be so upsetting to me.
It's that classic scene in the jail cell where the other person's like, "What are you in for?" And you're like, jaywalking.
And you're like, I'm not just impressing anybody with that one.
Yeah. They have a whole wing of the prison system for jaywalkers.
Pretty much.
Yep.
And we're like, what kind of jaywalking did you do? I mean, maybe it depends on where you did it. I feel like maybe if you raise the stakes of your jaywalking, you're like, it was jaywalking. But I jaywalked across like, I don't know, Atlanta's highway or something like that. And they're just like, whoa.
Wait a minute.
And
you caused major accidents.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh. Yeah, but I don't know. It has to be pretty big because I really just don't see myself going to. I'm like, why would I be in jail for something?
Like tickling. I mean,
I don't know, man. There's not enough stakes for me. There's not enough stakes. Oh my gosh. But I was telling him, I was like, yeah, it has to be like a school day so I know children are inside. And I'm like, the president's old enough. He has old enough kids that I would be hopeful that nobody would be in there crazy, but I'm not trying to scar anybody's children. I just want to put that out there. That would be crazy.
I'm glad you thought this through. I appreciate it.
You have to think about your crimes.
You only have to be a menace, but so far. You don't have to scar anybody with your crimes. You could just do something because it makes news and then you go home.
There you go.
I feel like I am the complete opposite of both you guys. You guys are making very innocent crimes, but I'm like, if I know I'm going to get a caught, I'm like, I need to, at least in the same vein, I'm like, I need to do something fun.
Okay.
So my crime of choice is I'm street racing. That is my go-to.
Yeah, that was right.
Yes. But with certain stipulations as well, because I always feel like the reason why I don't do it now is because I'm putting too many people at risk of my own recklessness. So I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want to put anyone else at risk. So I will street race, but at like 3 a.m. in the morning, where there shouldn't be no one on the road. And I'm going to want to hit at least 200, like just in a straight line. I don't need to Tokyo drift around corners and everything. But no, I just feel like me being behind the wheel, because that's actually really fun for me. Like that's something that I really want to do, is just drive as fast, push the car to its max limit, and knowing I'm going to get caught. But I'm like, yeah, no, I would do that one hands down without a doubt.
Yeah.
And it would be better if I even win too. It's like, oh,
Oh wow. Well, I mean, if you win, then you get bragging rights. You know, I do also think that the bragging rights of it all is truly something else. But I mean, technically, you do get bragging rights if you broke a crime that nobody else heard of. So these are all bragging rightsable in their own way.
Yeah. So that's another future episode. It's our third episode. Is we get to brag about the crimes that we committed, and we're all happy because we, in our own ways, our brags are all valuable.
That is true. That is very true. If I'm lucky, get slapped on the wrist, maybe pay a small fine, and I walk away with my license. It's still intact.
That's also true. You know, it's funny because of where I live. I'm like right off of the road. And I'm pretty sure there are people who street race at like 3 a.m. where I'm at, which is pretty wild because like I'll hear them and they're like, and I'm like, this is why I don't go out at that time of night because there's people zooming. It's pretty wild. So, and I haven't heard it in a while. So I'm like, did they crack down on them? Did those people move? Like, I don't know where they went, but.
The strangest we ever had was I started hearing like tires peeling out, like like so loud, right beside our house. We're right on the corner of an intersection, and a string of cars. I want to say at least 6 or 7, taking turns, just kind of slowly creeping up to the intersection, and then getting in the intersection and doing donuts, multiple donuts, and then leaving. And the next one would come and do it. Then the next one would come. They went around the block and then they came back and did it again. I'm like, what is this? And why my intersection? Like, is there something special about this intersection that I don't know?
Oh my gosh.
It's the perfect radius. This is it.
That's why they were out there with measuring tape the day before.
Exactly.
Now, Tyler, I realized something. I know why you got arrested for your streaking at the White House. It's because more underwear, less problems. No underwear, more problems. So that was it. So, so if when you're street racing, just wear a lot of underwear and you'll be fine. Like that's the secret to not getting arrested.
My mind is actually blown. That wow. That really tied back. I almost forgot about the underwear, which is my problem in the first place.
Can't forget about the underwear, folks. If you've heard one thing this episode,
that's the underwear.
Don't forget about the underwear.
It's important.
But I have another question for you. That I'm reading it off because I like to come up with some backup questions just in case. But it's is there any illegal activity you think should be considered legal or not have such a severe punishment?
Yeah, I already have thoughts.
I don't have thoughts yet. So why don't you go, Tyler, while I formulate some thoughts?
Okay. Because I already know the popular one where now they're legalizing marijuana and whatnot. So they shouldn't have as harsh crimes for it. That's good. I also do believe that if someone has an addiction, we shouldn't jail them. We should be giving them like rehabilitation, like things so they can actually kind of get reintroduced to life without having to depend on that because like you're just going to go back. So like you didn't solve anything. You just punished them for it. And then you gave them no solutions forward and you made their lives harder. So now they're just going to go into it even further because they have no resources and it's harder to get jobs and everything else because you have a record. So I have that one. And then the loitering one, mainly because of homeless population. And it's really just against like homeless people. So those are my really big ones.
Tyler, I appreciate that because that's actually what immediately came to my mind. And I'm like, I can't make this funny. So,
no, it's okay.
but you're right. Like that's it. I immediately thought of, here's what I immediately thought of. In my community, there's high levels of poverty, high levels of homelessness, high levels of addiction. And I know many neighbors who will set up at a vacant house or on a stoop and just hang out there because there's nowhere else. There's nowhere else for them to go. And so they're typically just hanging out, not causing any issues, anything like that. But our neighborhood has been rapidly changing, rapidly. And new neighbors will come in and immediately start calling the police and saying, hey, there are people sitting out at this alley, sitting out in this stoop. And I remember I have a friend of mine is unsheltered and has been as long as I've known him. Yeah. And there's one particular place that he would hang out all the time. And a new person moved in and basically called the police on him every day. Even the police, our area police are actually, I mean, I've kept an eye and I've always been encouraged because they've actually done a good job of trying to care for the neighborhood. And in this case was one that was really encouraging because they even knew this was ridiculous. But they also knew because they got the call, they got to do something about it. And so instead of rolling in there and like making a big deal out of it, they went up to my friend and said, hey, we got another call. So you're going to have to go somewhere else for a little bit. But like, you know, just go on. Just you're fine. Just go.
Right.
But it always frustrates me because what I know is he doesn't have a home. He doesn't have anywhere else to go. And to your point about addiction, he's doing better now, but for a season, alcoholism was a pretty hefty thing. And you're right. Just putting fines or jail time or whatever on him, like, doesn't change a thing.
Right.
He didn't even necessarily want to land where he was. And so what he needs is people coming alongside him and making him aware of opportunities and resources, helping him to get connected with those, and then journeying with them, because as we all know, all of us have had moments where we committed to something and then fell out. You know, your classic New Year's resolution. So as much as we want to get mad at someone who's wrestling with addiction, who then pulls out of rehab or something, like, let's look at our own lives and the number of times we've failed on something. Like, this is why community is so important. Yeah, like loitering and anything dealing with addiction, I agree. There are healthier and actually more effective ways to deal with it. The hard thing is it does take time, money, and commitment, and people aren't always willing to do that.
Yeah. And definitely, just for me personally, anything that's dealt with the homeless community, like, I always want to like put something towards it, because I know it's like any situation you can end up being in that same space, like how you said, like, they didn't want to be there. And which kind of leads me into my well, I definitely have two. It was at least for like marijuana or things, like, I don't think the severity of being in jail for like X amount of years should be even like a thing, especially now. Maybe a fine, but it shouldn't be on the same level as like cocaine or something. Like, it shouldn't be that.
I thought you were talking about crime to crime. I will say that is a thing that I'm also trying to get out of too, is comparing addictions, because that causes issues in itself. Because, okay, we can't demonize one and not demonize another one. Yeah. And then it's like, if it's an addiction, it's an addiction, and they still need resources, and point them to the resources. Don't. Now, if they did a crime that was related to it, different story, but it's one of those things. Yeah. But yeah, I guess it's not really as silly anymore. But
it's serious. Welcome to Serious Saturdays. Yeah. Where we're very serious.
The other thing that I wanted to say was I don't think it should be you just made this one. There's no way.
I am making these like on the fly anyways.
But the other one is that I don't think it should be so. I don't know if this is considered a crime, but not paying off your debt, like how it snowballs into like, oh, you missed, let's just say you were a college student, is like, oh, I have hundreds of thousands of debt, and because of that, I can't buy a house or I can't do these other things. I feel like that's such a severe crime, I'm going to say, or severe things, like
consequence.
Yeah. So to the point where it's like, if you fall behind, you just keep getting pushed farther and farther down with very little.
You're in a hole, so we're going to make your hole even deeper until you get out of that hole. It's like, you can't get out of the hole if you keep making it deeper.
Right. The punishment should be like getting resources and being like, oh, okay, now you have to go to this class because we know you're missing this, or this is a gap for you or something.
That or cap it. Or cap it.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's funny. I like that you brought up something that's not a crime, but is kind of almost treated criminal in a sense where you start lacking resources because of it.
Yeah.
So that is actually a really good way to connect that to you, because I wouldn't have thought about it like that. Wow.
I have another question. I have more questions unless there's more.
I was gonna say that this brought up a story for me. So my background, I studied urban planning, and there was this one girl who really inspired me who was in there, because she was already working in the field and just kind of wanted some classes on top of what she was doing already. And she was talking about people who are unhoused, especially if they've been unhoused for a long time, like being housed scares them.
Yes.
Because it's like you've never been in a home. There's a lot of responsibilities to it. Even me, like I moved around a lot when I was younger. And so I don't see like a house as like an asset the same way, I guess. Just because I'm like, oh, if you like get it or you lose it and all this other stuff, and then like the maintenance on it. And then I've been a renter all my life. Like it's kind of like you have to switch something in your brain almost to kind of be like, oh, okay, now I can do this. So she was saying because she worked with, I believe, the local housing authority, like it's about meeting people where they are. So even if they're unhoused, like making sure that they're sheltered in some way. So like there was one lady that she was working with who she'd been unhoused for a while. So she didn't want to be in an apartment or anything, but she made sure she got her a tent. And then she came back and asked for anything else. She would keep giving her resources and everything else. And it took a couple of years of just kind of like getting there and getting comfortable. And now she's in an apartment. But it takes a while. It takes resources. It takes someone who's committed to understanding where a person is to get them where they could be.
Yeah.
So, I just thought that was a really good story about like, okay, if that woman had somehow ended up like getting put in jail because she's loitering somewhere and like missed all these resources and didn't have other things that could like benefit her or someone in her life who was actually committed to just making sure she was at least sheltered.
Yeah.
Like, it's just valuable.
Yeah. You're tapping into something now that we're in serious Saturdays.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to add that to my laws. Like it's along with the loitering, but more specifically, there are laws in the books where I am around encampment, around like sleeping somewhere that is not your property.
Yeah.
And the problem is that, okay, it's one thing to have that, but if you also don't have alternative options, then what is somebody supposed to do? And so there are many spaces where communities would set up. So I'll tell you the moment that, as you were talking, it reminded me of one of the things that frustrated me the most about Richmond. There's this ministry called Blessing Warriors, and they are like boots on the ground, know everybody's name out there in the communities, serving those who are unhoused in amazing, beautiful ways. 3 a.m, they're up there. Like, it's just amazing. And it came together that I don't even know how it started, but there was this field that the city actually owned and had not been used in years and was just sitting vacant. Somehow a tent encampment formed there. And Blessing Warriors helped to provide some oversight to it. And this thing was like a structured, healthy community. Tents were numbered and in rows. There were rules for the community. But even more important, folks who usually feel isolated and even worse, rejected, found people that cared about them. Like their tent mates and like fellow tent folks, like they would hang out together and talk together. And the city kept trying to find ways to get them out of there. And they sent an environmental person to come and say, oh, there's something in the soil and the soil is unhealthy. And oh, this, that, and the other. They kept on finding things. What they finally did, and we're getting deep into serious Saturday here. When the pandemic hit, this community had been thriving for 6 months. The city used that as an excuse to say, oh, there's a bunch of people congregated. So you can't, the pandemic, you can't be there. And people are trying to say, no, actually, this is probably better because otherwise they're just going to be out on the streets. Like they're going to be more at risk. At least here they have structure and support. And the city came with this giant crane and just started grabbing tents and all the belongings in it, yanking them up and putting them into this dumpster and just, and people are watching. There are very few personal possessions. getting trashed. And I kid you not, like a week or so later, the what's the entity that deals with in the United States that deals with health and diseases? CDC. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it was them, but some large entity came out and said that one of their parameters for the pandemic was do not eliminate encampments. Like if an encampment exists, like leave it. And I'm like, oh, I was so mad at the city because now not only do these folks no longer have the tents, they no longer have this, this structured space, but they now have lost support. I mean, folks were giving rides to job interviews, rides to the doctor, right? Like all these kind of things. And they lost the community. And the disruption to that demographic, I would say it was catastrophic. And so I'm with you. Like that should not be criminalized, and it should not be done in such a way that the humanity of people can just be tossed out, because it still continues today. They'll find a space that does not disturb anyone. Nobody's even using the building, and the city will find out and immediately put things up that says you have 24 hours to remove all your stuff, or we'll remove it for you. And there are solutions. There are cities that are creating tiny villages or buying hotels, and like there are solutions. But again, it takes people willing to see the humanity in others and to invest in their thriving. And not everybody's on board with that.
Yeah,
which is heartbreaking.
You know, because it's definitely a shame is that it's whoever's running the city is like, oh, this is a blemish. It's not our it's not making the city shine like we envision. So it's like, oh, let's just get rid of it. And I'm like, that's not okay with me. And so in my mind, I was like, what if we restructured cities to, I don't want to make it like they are a bad thing, but it's like you whoever's running it is like, you're not going to want to see them like out and about. So why not make cities or areas with like underground areas so that was like their own space and everything. So it's like they get to live, they get to do whatever, but you're happy that is all right, cool. We still have this problem, but we literally swept it under the rug.
Yeah. It's a big thing that honestly, I'm at least glad that it came up while I was in graduate school, because people were actively thinking about that, like how we need to have wiggle room in laws and in ways that we're running communities so that people who live like, different, I guess, than the normal structures don't get just shoved out of the way because they don't fit the mold, or we don't know what this is and we can't regulate. And it's like, it's not about regulating it. They need the irregularity so they can have this community. And when you don't want even the most vulnerable of your communities to be able to have some resources, like you're just shortchanging yourself. Like they were, able-bodied citizens who were just trying to be a part of the community, and like they're trying to get jobs and like be a part of like their area as a whole. And you just took all the resources away. So now what? Like, and then it causes long-standing trust issues within cities and with their communities too, because people remember that. And, they might become housed at some point in a voter and then a really strong advocate for just anybody. And then you're like, oh, well, now we have to rebuild trust with the community. And it's like, well, you had a chance and you squandered it. And now it's like, now you're paying for like putting a Band-Aid, what do they call it? A Band-Aid on a bullet wound. So
Paul said, you put us in a hole. No, we end up in a hole and you just start digging down. Like so
Right.
And the problem is we love to make assumptions. And so when we see somebody in a hole, we decide we understand why they're in the hole because of their choices. It's their fault that they're in that hole. We never actually consider, what if they were pushed? Right? What if what if it was like a sinkhole and they were doing everything right and the ground gave out from under them? Like there's all kinds of reasons somebody could end up in a hole beyond just they got into the hole. They chose the hole. And what's so hard is especially American culture is just so individualistic, and human nature. We are so afraid of being lower or less than one of our gut instincts is to make others lower or less than, to separate ourselves, right? So you got all these things going on that then lead us to look at someone and make assumptions or to make them lesser. And that's why, I mentioned I'm in ministry. And so I know in Christianity, this is a theme, but also in many faiths, this idea of, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. There's two pieces to that, right? There's one, a communal understanding of reality, that we actually have a responsibility to each other, that our lives are not about us alone. And when we live individualistically like that, there is going to be issues because we actually don't exist like we exist as community. But the other piece is a level of humility. I can't remember how the quote goes, but there's someone that said, "But by the grace of God go I." This idea that, like, were it not for factors in my life keeping me from going in this direction, I probably would have ended up in this place. And so when we look at someone, there's this opportunity to practice humility, to say, I can make assumptions, but maybe if I see this person with value and with understanding, instead of seeing them as nefarious or villainous or whatever, I could say, well, maybe there were a series of events, a childhood trauma. In our community, you were talking about addiction. Well, in the 90s, drugs were being funneled into our city because it was right off of 95. People who wanted to make money brought the drugs in, and they didn't care the impact. Well, many neighbors were impacted by that, whether they chose or stumbled into it. And now there's a lifetime of ramifications since. Like, there are reasons people land in places. Sure, there are people that overtly choose to do wrong. Right. I would dare say that most people aren't actually trying to overtly choose to do wrong. Even in the times they might be aware, there are other things driving that. And when we begin to recognize a responsibility to each other and begin to see people with humanity and value, it changes what our solutions are, what our responses are. But we have to do that together and be in it for the long haul, because a lot of these things, most of these things, are not quick fixes. Somebody wrestling with addiction, like, you don't just stop being addicted. Addiction is a lifelong thing. You learn how to control it, mitigate it. You learn how to have support. You know how to bounce back after relapse. But I think many people just assume, just stop being an addict. And it's like, well, actually, that's not an option on the table, right? So, like, we recognize the longer journey and we make a decision to be a part of it. That's how everyone thrives. But unfortunately, most people are looking after their own thriving. And so that guy who was calling the police on my friend, he just didn't like the view of people drinking across the street. Right? So it impacted his aesthetics. That's not, nope. I'm not for that.
Right. And this is so funny because I'm like already having my fire, like my brain is firing, but I just keep thinking about, and like, I have to banner for this. And so, when you're saying assumptions, that really spoke to something that, like, even I've been kind of like working on with myself too, because I feel like, yes, I have like a community thought, and yes, I also understand like that you shouldn't assume what people have gone through, but you also have to understand, like, even if you do know their background and everything, like, you don't understand exactly how it's impacted them, or you don't understand how, like, what resources they had, what people they had around them. Like, you just don't know because you never walked in their shoes before. And so it's like you have to take yourself a step further, because you're also not assuming, but even when they do, after you've done the unassuming, you have to make sure that you're constantly checking in with yourself and going, I don't know this person. Like, even with our interpersonal lives and our relationships, like, and this is about to get so deep. I recently had a tiff with my dad. And so it was kind of funny because we were both coming at it from different angles, but I had to kind of take a step back for myself and be like, okay, I ultimately know that he is doing this because he thinks it's for my good. And we're not working against each other. We're working together, but we're working at it from different angles. And so, like, when you even take that into consideration and really kind of like remove what it is, like, you try to make it personal. I like, even if the person is personally like affected by you and it is personal to a certain degree, it's kind of more, if you think about it in the sense of, okay, what is this person's intent? What are they trying to get to? And like, just knowing like all I can control is my reactions, and I also want to get to that goal, then, you know, all the things that you already knew about them help, but also help you just to make sure that you can connect and get to that main point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we just got to take it even a step further to really be like, okay, this is what community looks like, and this is what working with another person looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we are going deep.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I'm like, I'm hearing you guys, and I'm thinking of so many things in the back of my head. I do something that I definitely want to say, just with the topic of helping out and everything. In the same thing as like you want to help it and everything. I said this before, is like you want to do so in a way that doesn't put you back in the hole too. Like you don't, because at that point, who are you really helping? If instead of one person's in the hole, now it's two people in the hole. There's like a fine balance of I want to do something, but how do I do it in a way?
Yeah, and it's hard because it's like the question is, what is the end goal, or what is the thing that needs to happen? Right. So that's the question that my wife and I wrestled with for the 15 plus years that we've lived here. Is it's very frequent that somebody would ask us for money, and we have never had a whole lot of money. You know, we've always been in ministry jobs, or my wife's a teacher. None of that pays well. And then the last 5.5 years, I haven't had a traditional paycheck, so that doesn't pay well, right? It's like, and so when people would ask for money, it was a real question of, can we afford this? But then there's also the issue of, I hear what they're saying, but are they really going to use it for this reason? And it was a journey navigating that. And one of the things I learned is that there actually isn't an answer to that question. People want it to be like, should you give money or should you not? People will give answers, and you'll find various. What I found is a better question for me to ask is, what is my intention in this moment? Because you could give money out of a superiority. Oh, hello, poor person. Here's some money. I'm good.
Right.
Like, or you can give money out of pity. You know, oh, poor person. Like, oh, right. Like, or out of fear. Just, I just want you to leave me alone. Or you could not give money for all kinds of reasons, right? And so I found that something that's important for us to do in any interaction we have is to understand our intentions. I used to run internships and service groups with one of the ministries I worked for. And there's a guy named Pastor Don. He's been my pastor for, a decade and a half, married my wife and I. I would always bring him in at the start because he would always trick the groups with this one question. And they're all coming, especially the spring break groups. They're coming to do projects and do all the kind of things. And so I say, all right, I want you to raise your hands if you are here to help people this week. And people put their hands up, like, quick, yep, that's me. And he's like, put your hands down. You're not here to help. You're here to serve. And what he would press into is like, helping can come from that place of superiority or pity or fear. Serving comes from a different place. Serving comes from a place of seeing that other person as having value, of counting them as more valuable than yourself even in that moment. Because I would much rather be watching a show on Netflix than, spending my time with this person, but I'm choosing that they are more valuable than my free time, right? Like serving is coming from a very different place. And I'm going to put some ministries on blast here, not by name, but the approach that I see a lot of ministries do, I think, is misguided. If they are Christian ministries that are professing to be Christ-following ministries, what Jesus did was love people. That's what he was pressing into. That's what he invited. Love your neighbors. He even said, love your enemies, not fix people. And he definitely brought healing and all that kind of stuff. But the core of it was love, because what those people were encountering were not just the physical issue, but it was the broken community. I mean, there are people in that time, if you had like leprosy, for example, you literally were kicked out of your home and out of your community, and you were isolated. And so, his skin was healed. But what really happened is he was brought back into community. So that's what drives me, is like, I know my purpose is not to fix problems. But that is the default response. Oh, that person has an addiction. I need to fix that addiction. That person is unhoused. I need to fix their unshelteredness. That person, right? Like we're trying to fix people because we have this idea of the better place that they should be. When what if the core of what we're all invited to, no matter what we believe, is simply to love others, to love our neighbors. This is why that concept is in so many faiths, because I believe it is a core truth to how we are designed. Is we were designed to actually love others, not just love ourselves, to give ourselves, because we are called to be a part of community and interaction. So our intentions are really the big part of it. When we decide to give or not give, my wife and I have given money at times where we were fairly confident the story was a lie, because we felt a peace about, at that moment, this person just needs dignity and love. And what is this, $35 or whatever that they say they need for a hotel? Like, what is that? Whatever. Like, in our minds, that's God's money anyway. So like, doesn't matter. But in that moment, we had the opportunity to not give money, to give love through that money. And there are times where we haven't given, and I can still give love. I can still show honor and dignity. Hey, I don't have $5 right now, but can I pray for you? Or, hey, like, let's hang out, let's talk, And so our intentions carry so much weight. But again, it goes back to that same thread we've been coming back. These things take willingness. They take sacrifice sometimes. And in the end, I think it is worth it. But in the moment, we'll be aware of what it costs us, our time, our money, our comfort. But if we're willing to give that up for the sake of others, the reward is far greater than us controlling our wealth and our comfort. Because you can't control that. A pandemic can happen and strip people's bank accounts. Right? You can't control it, but you can control the ability to love others and for them to feel loved.
We can have this conversation for. I want to have this conversation, but I did ask for just an hour of your time, and I think
I know
we've gone way past it. So. Unfortunately,
we did two episodes here. There's silly Saturdays and serious Saturdays. There's gonna be a clear cut right there. You're like, so people get a 2-for-1 right here.
That's very true. But
it's that secret sauce.
But Paul, I know you mentioned this before, but the floor is yours. If you want to mention anything, shout out anything. Anything. The floor is yours. What do you want to say?
Yeah, man. Thanks for the floor. I like floors. They keep me from falling endlessly. So one, I just want to thank y'all because what you created here. Oh, y'all like that, y'all? Do y'all say y'all?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm from I'm from South Carolina, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely say y'all.
Y'all say y'all down there. I love what y'all are doing. Y'all have created this really natural space. And I love where this conversation went. So thank you for doing what you're doing. I'm not one for self-promotion, but what I am one for is I feel a big part of what I'm here to do in the world and in life is to create authentic, accessible space. And so I love to have conversations like these. If people are processing and wrestling through these, I love to make myself available. So if anybody wants to connect, my website is wheredidyousegod.com, and there's things I've written and podcasts and all that kind of stuff. But again, I don't care about like promoting stuff as much as saying, if people need someone to process the hard questions with, I want to make myself available. So look me up, find me, and we'll talk.
That's the famous Paul.
That's the famous Paul. Yeah, I mean, I don't even need to tell people about it because they already know. Everybody knows me.
They already knew where to find you.
Tyler, you got the thing today.
Oh, I'm so excited. You
sound like it.
I'm sorry. I was also sad. I was real tired before I got up here, y'all, but the conversation did energize me, but now I'm back to like, now we're leaving the conversation, so my energy is about to
You got that adrenaline boost, and now we're coming back to earth.
Yeah, and it's like, oh wait, you were tired before this, but it's okay. So, my thing today is a quote. It's from Louise Smith. And it says, you can't reach for anything new if your hands are still full of yesterday's junk. So,
I like that.
Yeah, I thought that was good.
Drop the junk and wear more underwear.
Man, I'm telling you, that underwear is sneaking up on us.
And nobody likes underwear that sneaks up on you.
No. No. This was such a great episode. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for
Yeah.
being here. You're welcome back anytime you have.
I mean, we've already got 2 more episodes like sketched out.
know.
So
yes,
you know.
so
Yeah, it's
you're always
exciting.
welcome back. But do my nice little send off. Don't forget to ask yourself, ask others, and never stop asking questions. See you.
Bye. Wow, you're still here. Well, if you enjoyed the episode, there are a few different ways to support our podcast. Following us on Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube, or becoming a supporter of our Patreon for $2 or $5 a month, where you'll have access to never before released visual episodes, funny bloopers, polls, or you can pose a question. The links can be found in the description wherever you listen. The simplest way to support us is by leaving a review about how great or bad we are, or telling a friend about our show. Anyways, thanks for listening.